What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. It is time for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. I'm your host, CJ Zwarich. Fresh in the middle of a busy week filled with some incredible television. We have episode 3 of The Acolyte, which we will be covering here on the podcast, as well as the first 3 episodes of The Boys. House of the Dragon comes out this weekend. My Adventures with Superman just came out with season 2, episode 5. Got to watch that show, everybody. I'm telling you, it's wonderful. And so much more is coming. We got the second half of the season of Bridgerton. We are close to The Bear and House of and Rings of Power. Just things are coming. Things are cooking. And to help me break it down, we got my fellow agent for the second week in a row, helping, can't replace Adam, but helping fill the gap as Adam is busy writing 12 billion articles a day right now. Damon, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I can confirm we are recording this time. Thumbs up, TJ. You did
it. We had 20 minutes into the recording last week, Acolyte episode 1 and 2 with the lovely Rachel Leishman. I realized StreamYard says we are not recording. So we get all upset. We make fun of ourselves. Thankfully, we don't talk any shit about anybody, but we're just like getting upset at ourselves. Restart it. Upload it the next day. Turns out StreamYard has recorded the entire time we are in the room.
It lied.
And it all got uploaded. And so our dual intros are laughing at ourselves in the middle. Every single piece all gets thrown on there. Shout out to Damon for realizing it near immediately and getting and editing that out of there. But to help us break down the Acolyte today, we have another amazing guest. I love getting to say welcome to Level 7 on the podcast with a fellow Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stan, Jamie Jirak from comicbook.com. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this.
I can't wait to talk about it with you. It's so exciting. When we have the Marvel shows on Disney Plus, I try not to bother you because for your day job every day, you're covering it on Phase Zero. It's very busy over there. But when we get Star Wars, I know every time I'm going to call you over. And so I'm looking forward to breaking down the Acolyte with you. Before we dive in, make sure you're following the Agents of Fandom on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. And then shout out to our Facebook subscribers, nearing 16,000 followers over there, growing so fast. So shout out Facebook. And make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're watching us on YouTube, and subscribe to the Agents of Fandom. Wherever you get your podcasts, leave a nice little 5-star review. If you're on Apple Pods, leave a nice little couple sentence or two for us. It bumps us up the algorithm. It helps. Before we start talking Star Wars, it's Whatcha Watching. Where we all, are always busy covering these different things for work. But sometimes we actually get this little known thing called downtime, get to watch or read something for ourselves. Damon, I know you're just starting up The Boys. What have you thought so far? And what have you been reading for comics this week?
The Boys. It's a good show, and whenever it comes to like the hyper violence and all that stuff, so long as I say it adds to the story of it, like the very first scene of The Boys when like Huey's girlfriend just explodes, it's supposed to be a shocking moment, right? That's the intention of the hyper violence in that, and it works. We've almost gotten to a point where it's just like we're just trying to one up ourselves by just showing the most ridiculous thing, and maybe it makes sense for a scene, maybe it doesn't. But overall, the story is still pretty good. I do know it's wrapping up after the end of next season, and I think that is a good thing for this show. So The Boys so far, 3 episodes in, solid. Comics-wise, Jamie will be happy to hear this. A brand new Scarlet Witch run just came out this week. And
I'm behind, but I know, and I need to catch up because
It's very, very good. It's continued from Steve Orlando from his first run. So if you've been reading that too and you're all caught up with everything, it's just essentially a big continuation, even though it is a #1. And then music-wise, I've just been still for the past month and a half or so, just been listening to Bring Me the Horizon's newest album. Just almost on repeat. It's almost a problem at this point, but it's fine. It's great. I'm fine.
What is it?
Bring Me the Horizon's new album.
I don't know. I'm really bad at music. Music is.
You're good.
I'm gonna Google this.
I love talking music with Damon because I get to rub in that a band that we both like, The Beaches, comes and they play near him, and it's like $150 for a ticket, and then they come to Saskatoon, Canada, 250,000 people, going for $20 this summer. So looking forward to that one. But
Crazy.
you were actually just this week, if you haven't checked it out yet and you like Comic Talk, check this one out, because you were just on comicbook.com Phase Zero's sister podcast this week on the poll list, talking comics on Comic Book Nation.
Yes, I was. I was with Matt Aguilar and Kofi Outlaw, and we were sitting down chatting comics. It's almost the same comics that we chat about on the Comic Corner, but some differences in there, which is always exciting. And I got to defend my Ultimate X-Men book in front of Kofi Outlaw, and I held my ground, and I'm proud of that.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Not an easy person to hold down an argument with sometimes, especially on his own podcast. So proud of you for holding your own. Jamie, what about you? What you been watching?
Well, interestingly, I also just started The Boys. I'm 6 episodes in. I like it. I don't love it. I'll continue it until I'm done. That's that. But more excitingly, I'm rewatching Twin Peaks. I love Twin Peaks. It is one of my favorite things in the whole world. And last week, my friend Vera Drew, who directed The People's Joker, she moderated a Q&A with Ray Wise, who is so good in Twin Peaks, and we got to see Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me on the big screen, and that was awesome. And so we just started The Return, which is the reboot. It is the greatest television reboot ever made, and it's awesome. And I'm really, like, any chance I get to talk about Twin Peaks, I'm excited to talk about Twin Peaks. So that, have you guys watched Twin Peaks?
I have not.
Ooh,
I
something
can't say
fun
I have either. So
in the
I got
future.
something.
Put it on the list.
Always looking to have something to add to the list, because right now, like, we have a TV on almost all the time at our house. A lot of what we do, a lot of Ava's home on maternity leave, just taking care of baby. I work from home, so I hang out with them, and we're just watching TV while we get stuff done. And I talk about it on the podcast. She loves a procedural, and so we are on season 7 of Castle with Nathan Fillion.
Nathan.
And you know what? It's surprisingly enjoyable. It's like their kind of thing that they do is each episode, each murder is like a play on like a movie or a TV show or like some known work of fiction. And so it's a fun little play. I'm looking forward to it getting to the end. I can't believe they went on for 8 seasons of this show. It's like they catch the main villain in like season 5, and then it just continues and it continues, because that's how procedurals work on network TV. They go forever. But I'm just started The Boys season 4. I'm very excited to dive into it further. Been writing about my adventures with Superman, and that show is just so slept on. The episode that comes out this week, episode 5, best of the series so far. It is incredible. I'm looking forward to diving into Bridgerton season 3 part 2, but have not been able to do that yet. Just been simply too busy, but so much good TV, and I'm looking forward to diving into all of it. But this past couple days has just been appointments and sports works things, and so I'm looking forward to getting a few days and just catching up on all of it. One of the shows that I only even got to watch episode 3 once, I haven't even been able to rewatch, that is incredible and coming out right now, is Star Wars' The Acolyte on Disney+. Episode 3 is now streaming, and it was a fun one. But before we even talk about the episode itself, the Yord Horde has taken the internet by storm. We talked a lot about it last week with Rachel. We had a lot of fun. Beautiful friendship bracelets. Jamie, I didn't even know this when I asked you to come on, and so I'm so happy this worked out, because you have a special connection to the Yord Horde.
I do. I am the original Charlie Barnett fan. And I know that, like, you're like, oh, anyone could say that. No, I was, because I went to high school with Charlie, and this year is actually 20 years since I've known Charlie. I want to tell you the story of my original fanning out of Charlie Barnett, which is my freshman year of high school. He was in Seussical the Musical. I went to a performing arts high school, it was a theater high school, and he was Horton in, of Horton Hears a Who fame in Seussical, and he was so good. This production of Seussical went on to win the Florida Theater Conference and the Southeastern Theater Conference. Those are not just for high schools. Those are like theater, like all theater productions. That's how good this high school production was. And he was so good as Horton. And he worked at, so I didn't really know him because he was a junior and I was a freshman. And like in high school terms, that's like, might as well be 50 years. So he worked at Cold Stone Creamery, where a lot of my classmates work because you can sing for tips. And so I went into Coldstone and he was working and he didn't really know me. And I tipped him and I was like, "Will you sing Horton?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course." And he sang to me. and I was like, "Oh my God, Charlie Burnett sang to me." And then eventually we became actual friends and I wasn't just a fan of his. But I love to see people fanning over him on the internet because I was like, I know, I've been doing it for 20 years and it makes me so happy because he is the sweetest, nicest human being on the planet and he deserves all of this success. And it's so much fun to see him getting it.
That makes me so happy to hear that because like we all have like borderline PTSD now where you get attached to someone online because of these like cool performances or they say something funny and you rally behind them and you make them into something in your mind that they're not. And then so when you actually hear the other side where it's like they're actually a great person, it's so wonderful that they made it. It's such a wonderful story. He had a clip this week go viral. Shout out to the Acolyte marketing team with Star Wars with Lucasfilm because they're getting this Yord Horde stuff out with Charlie fronting it so quick and he's crushing it. And one of the ones that I thought was most fun was to steam or not to steam, because one of the big things that begun the Yord Horde was inserting him immediately to himbo status as he before a mission, he's steaming his Jedi robe. And so he goes through these different Star Wars characters, Master Yoda. No, he's not steaming. Look, he's at this. He's on a planet right now. He's in exile. His robes are torn up. He's not steaming. Padme, all her stuff is steamed, but it's handmaidens doing it. Padme is not doing the steaming. Cyril, we have steaming parties together. Lando, he's the one who taught me how to steam. Just all these great things. And so I want to ask the two of you, I'm going to throw these different characters out there.
Oh boy.
And they're not even going to all be from Star Wars. And I want to know, do they, whether it's a costume, a uniform, an outfit, do they steam it before a mission? And so starting with one from Star Wars, because I thought this should have been included in the one they gave, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Is he steaming his robe? Jamie, I'll throw it to you.
I think prequel era Obi-Wan was, and then but once Anakin turned, he was done steaming. He lost the flavor. But that man, I think he always looks good. That's my boy.
Very true. Even ragged and worn down, he looks good. Damon,
especially before a mission, before going to Mandalore.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. If he's going somewhere where Satine
there.
is.
Yes.
I
get that now.
Steamed.
I understand that reference.
That robe is getting steamed if he is going on a mission to Mandalore where he might run into Empress Satine. That was my exact thought process. All right. Next up, Captain America. Steve Rogers. Damon, is Steve Rogers steaming his Captain America costume?
Maybe I'd say during the first Avengers era, pre Winter Soldier. After that, I don't think so.
He learns about the rise of Hydra, and he's just immediately done. Would Captain America love to steam in the time of Hydra? Jamie, see what I did there? That was pretty good.
That's pretty good. I disagree. I think he steamed all the way up until Infinity War. Like, he showed up to that battle at the airport in Germany fresh. He knew what he had to do. I think that there's no way he went to fight his friends unsteamed. He had to look good for them. So I think, but then once we get to he's on the run, he can't. How do you have a travel steamer? I don't think so.
Damon, is Clint Barton, your guy, Hawkeye, is he steaming that little Hawkeye outfit that he goes to the LARPing festivals with?
Never. No version of Clint Barton, whether it is the comic pure himbo version or the rugged spy version of Clint Barton, is ever steaming anything in his life. Absolutely not.
Jamie, does Clint Barton know how to use a steamer?
I think he knows how to use it because like him and Laura have like definitely gone to some weddings together where they're hectic, the kids are running around. But when it comes to steaming for the job, I agree, absolutely not. But I think he knows how.
Jamie, you get first crack at this one. We may find out in the upcoming series. Does Agatha Harkness theme her variety of wondrous get-ups before doing her witchery?
I mean, I think yes, but magically. Like, she's not holding the steamer doing it herself. She's magicking that for sure. But bitch always looks good, so she's definitely working something.
I'm picturing Catherine Hahn having like an omnipotent steamer that like she talks to, like the cloak of levitation, where it's just like steaming the gown and she's having the conversation before having to go out. David, what do you think?
I completely agree with that. If she is, it's like magically. She's not touching the steamer with her hands. She doesn't have time for that.
All right, I think that'll do it. I'm picturing just like different characters in my head as it now comes up as like, would Superman steam his super suit? No, but Ma Kent would definitely be steaming that super suit before he goes out. What about Mark Grayson? Damon, do you think Mark Grayson is steaming that invincible suit?
Maybe on occasion. Depends which version of Mark we're getting.
6 episodes into The Boys, Jamie, last one. Does Homelander steam his suit?
Oh, he probably does weirder stuff than that, honestly, with that suit. Like, yes, but in a way that my brain can't even fathom how he does it, because it's something horrific. That's what I think.
This has been a really fun segment, and I'm happy we added it in. So shout out to the Yord Horde and shout out to the Acolyte for giving us this wonderful content. 3 episodes in, Jamie, what are your general thoughts of this new Star Wars show?
I'm loving it. And what's crazy is that like I'm all obviously biased. Like, it's really hard to see your friend be a Jedi and not like lose all sense of normalcy. But Leslie Headland is one of my favorite writers in existence. 2 films that she wrote and directed, Bachelorette and Sleeping with Other People, are 2 of my all-time favorite movies. So when she was announced for the show years ago, I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. And then I was at a party and I saw Charlie and he's like, oh, I'm going to be in Leslie Headland's show. And I was like, what are you saying to me? Are you kidding me? Like, there's no way I couldn't love this show. And I'm interested. I just started Light of the Jedi. Because like I'm really interested in the High Republic era now, and it's just like got me jazzed. I'm really digging everything. I'm only like 40 pages into the book, but it's really good.
Reading is really hard for me because, you know, the ADHD runs rampant, but this is inspiring me to find any audiobook of the High Republic I can find so that I can get more versed as well. I couldn't agree more. Damon, we were both super high on the first 2 episodes. You are thrilled to be in your High Republic era. What did you think of episode 3?
Episode 3, I liked. I think for me, the thing with episode 3 is, especially when you come off of a 2-episode premiere where you really become attached to like these characters, like Soul. I'm like, I need more Soul. And then essentially our first episode of the new week is a flashback episode. So it's like, all right. This feels a little early to have kind of like here's how everything kind of happens, allegedly, from like, you know, a certain perspective. So it was like, oh, okay. I think for me, I would have liked to have at least one more episode of that gang that we've kind of grown accustomed to, especially going into a new week where we came off of 2 episodes in week 1. So that's where it kind of let me down a little bit because I wanted to see more of that story progress instead of, oh, we're already going back to kind of do the, hey, here's what you missed type of thing. I feel like that would have, for me, been better served like maybe next week or a week 5, but we'll see because, you know, we're not even halfway through the series yet. Maybe there's a reason that they put this episode here.
Yeah, I think the mystery aspect of the series definitely gives me pause to critique too much of just because I don't know how it's going to unfold yet. So it keeps me hopeful more than anything else throughout the process. I too was a little bit, I still liked it a lot, but was a little lower on the third episode than the first two initially. And then I kind of thought about it more. At first it kind of made me think it was like one of my favorite types of chips, but it was in like a little Halloween bag. And so like by the end I was like, hey, but I didn't really get anything, you know, that tasted really good. I enjoyed it, but I don't know anything more than I did at the beginning of the episode, because that very much seemed like what, for the most part, what we had been told, you know? But then I thought about it more, and I'm seeing all these tweets about it, and I'm realizing that how unreliable of a narrator that was throughout this episode, and how much it was just Osha's perspective. And it made me realize that there was a lot more to that episode than I initially thought when I first sat down with it. And there are more chips in the bag, I think, than I initially thought. And so the episode has grown on me, even though I've only watched it the one time throughout the week since I watched it. Jamie, how about you? Episode 3, it kind of takes a different turn. We get the flashbacks, we get the witch history. What'd you think?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I totally see, Damon, where you're coming from. I got to watch 3 and 4 together because I had screeners, and so I didn't really feel that. But I think I might have felt that way had I been watching it week to week. So I totally can see that. But I loved it. I think those witches are so cool. I interviewed the costume designer, Jennifer Bryan, and she told me so much cool stuff about that. So go on Comic Book and read that article because specifically about the witches, because it's really fascinating. But I just rewatched it today. And I enjoyed it very much a second time. I don't want to harp on this because they're kids and I don't want to be mean. I don't think the kids were great. But like, they're kids, you know, it's, what are you going to do? Like there's only so many twins who are going to look like her, like, to cast. So I think they did the best with what they had to work with. But it was just cool to see the Force from this other perspective. I really liked that. And I didn't think, like you said, TJ, I didn't think as much about the mystery aspect until rewatching it. Like, oh yeah, what, they're just laying there? They're not burned. What happened to them? So, and then didn't Torben, is that his name?
Yeah.
When he didn't have any his scar yet, but then like he on the ship, his face is fucked up, right? So like I didn't notice that the first time. So I was like, what they do? And I like that. I like what they do. So yeah, I'm really digging it.
It's very specific thing that like clued into me that like, oh, there's so much more to this. Not just that there was more that they weren't showing. I obviously knew as they were going, like, there's more to this that I would like to see. But Damon, I believe you sent me this tweet. I believe it was you. And I'll see if I can actually find the tweet. And if I can, I'll pull it up onto the screen. But each of the first 2 episodes had 2 titles. Justice, Revenge, I believe was the one. Yeah, Revenge/Justice, Lost/Found. And this one, it just has the one title to the name. It is just simply Destiny. And so it was very clear that with those first 2 episodes, what they were doing was, this is half from Osha's perspective, this is half from May's perspective. But seeing that, like, that was to me the clear point of like, hey, it wasn't just that we're missing something. It was that this is a very clear side of the story. This is the entire story from one person's perspective. Whatever. Oh, that's not even the right. Dang it. That was the wrong tweet that I pulled up. I was just looking through our chats. It was just one of their perspectives. It was the entire story, but only from one of their point of views. The other one could still be coming. And then the other one, we get to see from May's perspective why she's so upset at the Jedi, because clearly there was more there that happened. Damon, what did you think of, kind of putting aside, you know, you would have liked more from the characters in the stages that we already met. What did you think of getting to see Osha and May in their childhoods? Because I thought it was kind of interesting how Osha was just so naturally gifted, and it just seemed like she didn't really care. But then in these earlier episodes, we kind of saw she didn't really have much abilities left with the Force untuned, but she had a whole lot of natural gifts as a child.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the most fascinating thing about this whole childhood aspect, I don't know if we're going to get into like the whole witches thing later, but it's like That is very like they started diving deep into like High Republic theories, which is when I'm like, ooh, that's the fun stuff. Because Jamie, when you ever get to it, phase 2 of this whole High Republic thing like goes into the past. And in the past, you get to see all these different ideologies of the Force and who's allowed to use the Force and how they think the Force should be used. So when like the witches are kind of talking about the thread, which is a very different way of like the Force, that's TJ for me, like with this entire episode, that's when I was the most captivated by it. Because I'm like, now we're getting into like previous Star Wars canon from these books, seeing it on the screen for the first time, but it's hinted very subtly to the point where it's still easily like people are able to bring it in if they've never read that stuff before, which I thought was very, very, very cool. From Osha's like gifts, she just kind of seemed almost like the kid that almost wasn't gifted, because May seemed to be the one that was like so heavy and tuned with the Force that they're almost looking at Osha and being like, what's wrong with this one? Osha's like super power, or May's super powerful.
There was the one sister does not have ADHD and the other one does. That's literally what it is. It's the other one has all the same gifts. She just can't sit still long enough and pay attention unless it's something she loves. If it's something she loves, she'll get hyper focused. She'll dive in. But otherwise, it's just like, what the fuck am I doing here? Ooh, butterfly. Jamie, what did you think of the two of their childhoods, getting to see them interact, and did that open up to you anything about who the characters are, getting to see them as kids?
Yeah, so the thing about me is I love twin stuff. It's because of my childhood obsession with Mary Kate and Ashley. I was born to love the Olsen family, and so I just like get so excited when there's like a twin story. I know that Star Wars literally started with the twin story, but I think it's really cool how, like, again, we don't know so much, but I liked learning a little bit about what they were like, about how May was more dependent and couldn't even fathom not being with her sister, where Asha was like, nah, bye. I don't want to, I just want to be my own person. And I think that's really interesting and a little sad, but I'm so interested to see how they're going to come back together. If they do, I assume they will. So yeah, I think I thought it was all very interesting. Although in the beginning, it's funny because when I talked to Jennifer Bryan about the costumes in this episode, it makes sense that they're dressed the same for like the show and like their characters, but it was also a little hard for me to at the beginning to be like, wait, which one is which twin? Especially in the scene where they're like fighting, like just like when their mom is trying to like do a lesson and they're picking at each other. I was like, wait, which one started it? Oh no. So that's my only thing about that.
So many people were like, this isn't how twins would act. This isn't how sisters would react. And I'd see people like, if you've never threatened your sibling with a knife, then you don't have a sibling. I don't believe you. And so I think it's a lot more realistic than some people who may not have been in that situation would think. Damon, I want to kind of expand on that magic stuff that we talked about, because we get to see these witches, and I love witches stories because the Night Sisters of Dathomir is some of my favorite Star Wars stuff. I love Merrin from the Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order games. I love the stuff between Mother Talzin and Maul and Savage Opress, that whole arc in the Clone Wars. I love that so much. And then even like when they return in Star Wars Rebels, that's some of my favorite stuff. So getting to see some witches who are not the Night Sisters, it's a very interesting change. What similarities did you see? What differences? Because when you brought up like the different sects having the different ideologies of the Force, it reminds me a lot of like, just if you look at them as different religions, and the Jedi are the one religion. If the Night Sisters are kind of one sect of the religion, I view these witches as, under the same sect of ideology, but then branching out differently, like as most religions have.
That's the correct word for it, is a religion. And those not old, but in the Phase 2 High Republic books, like the use of the Force, how people use it is essentially seen as different sets of religion. And there's this whole like path of the open hand and all this stuff that I won't get into because then we're going down a complete rabbit hole. But that's like the really cool aspect to it. And what I thought was really neat was how they're kind of saying how the way that they use the Force is almost seen as unnatural, right? Which is almost a term that like the Sith described their use of the Force, which was like the dark side is unnatural.
Well,
so
specifically, and the interesting thing too is that was specifically used when Palpatine was describing like keeping people alive, how he would save Padme.
So it's all like within the Force, and it's just a matter of like how like the Jedi who are light side users and the Sith who are dark side users like just manipulate it in completely different ways. It is like, yes, the Force is magic, guys. We always have joked and said that Jedi are space wizards. You don't have space wizards without space magic. So now it's just a different way of being able to manipulate that in the sense.
Couldn't agree more. What did you think of the different witches we got to see, Jamie? And I'm interested if you happen to have any of that conversation with the costume designer about like were the costumes differentiated at all between Night Sisters, witches we've seen before in this brand new group?
Yes,
Coven, if you will.
Yes. She said Leslie Headland like had her look at the Night Sisters specifically because she didn't want the audience to confuse them for them. She wanted to make sure that they knew that this was a different set of witches, and that was exciting for Jennifer because she could just kind of do what she wanted. And so like, you know, purple is a very regal color, so she pulled like she wanted it to look royal, and she pulled things from like, oh god, I don't some like ancient, not ancient, a long time ago in like Portugal, and just like other things, like all these cool some African influences, so yeah, that's neat. But yes, she specifically did not want people to be like Night Sisters, so, and I think that they succeeded in that. I have not finished Clone Wars. As you know, I've been slowly watching it for like 5 years. I'm on season 3 now, but I have watched all of Rebels, so I do have some knowledge. But I'm no expert in that area.
My brain can't help but try and make connections where I saw that one of the witches just like popped up to talk, and I was like, is that a relative of Maz from The Force Awakens?
Oh
because that looks like the same species.
I thought that too. It does look like Maz, but like a big, like taller.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And then, like, Damon, I know you hate this. Like, you're watching the Acolyte going, like, give me no connections to the Skywalker saga. Make it entirely its own thing. Don't give me any connections. And I'm watching this, like, I see Mother Coral. I see these horns coming out of her head. And I'm like, wow, you know, different religious sects. Mother Talzin is Savage Opress and Darth Maul's mom. She's a Night Sister. Maybe this group of witches split off from the Night Sisters, and Mother Coral is a relative of Mother Talzin, but they had a difference of ideology. Maybe she's related to a descendant of Maul. And I'm just like, have all this stuff going through my head, and Damon's like, fuck off. No.
Boo, tomato, tomato. I don't want to see anything that says Skywalker, anything associated with this show. Get out of here. I want this to be its own little thing. Just let us live in this little bubble right now. It's a big galaxy.
What do you think of the potential theory? Because I've seen this one thrown around too. And Damon, just, even if you hate it, give me your thoughts, overall thoughts outside of just, I don't want it to connect. There are past many usages of the Force that people could consider unnatural, said by Palpatine, said by this group here. We see very different, I think, than what the Immaculate Conception of Anakin Skywalker was. But we see here he was created, Osha and May were created partially using through magic. And then they were carried inside of Mother Coral. Do you think, because obviously if the Jedi can find these witches, Osha and May, obviously the Sith could too. Do you think Palpatine living all of these years, Anakin being created, etc., do you think some of those secrets could have been learned from this coven?
Sure. I don't think that's an awful possibility. I think if you're going to touch anything on that, is almost like you introduce this as a concept that others are then able to use. It's not just a direct one character for one character type of thing. But as a concept, sure. If you want to create that to be like, this is almost explains how this happens, I'm fine with it, so long as it just kind of like makes sense. And Star Wars, you can make anything make sense. That's the fun thing about sci-fi, right? Like you could just say it does now, and you're like, okay.
Sometimes space has oxygen when I want it to. George Lucas. Jamie, what did you think about that potential thread?
Yeah, I've been doing. I think it's funny that I saw a tweet that someone was like, "This ruins Anakin's whole thing, and he's not special anymore." And I'm like, as far as we know, the Force just kind of put him up inside her like some Jesus shit. Whereas, this coven like specifically worked some magic to make it happen. I feel like those are not comparable. Although who knows? We don't quite know. I saw some theories that like, oh, Darth Plagueis is going to show up, and maybe he did it all along. But like they're dumb if they try to create. Answer that question about Anakin, because we don't need that question answered. Also, I love the Phantom Menace with my whole heart, but like there was no father will always be so dumb to me. But like in a loving way, in a way that I love how dumb it is. But yeah, it's interesting.
You know what I found out just from like there was that thing that has been going viral lately. Like, what's a useless piece of Star Wars knowledge that you know that you think some people might not? And that is the whole "are you an angel" thing is not referencing an angel like we know of an angel. An angel is a group in the Star Wars galaxy that is considered to be the most beautiful people in the galaxy. And so that's what he was asking her. Yeah, I thought that was so cool.
I did see a couple things in that thread I didn't know that I couldn't tell you one right now off the top of my head, but I did learn some things in that thread.
Obi-Wan is from the planet Stu John because George Lucas was on Jon Stewart and was like, yeah, why not? Stu John.
Star Wars.
Oh.
And think of that. Anytime people get pissed that are like, oh, this is being changed, this breaks canon, George Lucas wouldn't want that. He named a planet Stu John because he was on Jon Stewart.
That man is the richest person from Hollywood. In Hollywood, he's fine. He does not give a shit, you guys. He's a billionaire. He's like, whatever.
That's amazing.
Jamie, you've seen episode 4, so if there are anything like remotely spoiler related, you can just pass this on to Damon. Okay. But what do you think of the thought that there is only one episode title to this? The others have been 2. Was this just solely Osha's perspective, and we're gonna get a similar episode from Maze?
I don't know. I will say, when we get the screeners, we don't get the episode title, so I don't know what the title of episode 4 is. But I will say, when I interviewed Jennifer, she made it seem like we were gonna see the witches again in a way that and I didn't really think too hard on it because I was like, is that a spoiler? But I think so. Like maybe we could see a flashback again. But I don't know. I don't know. I'd be happy. Whatever they want to give me, I'll take it.
Damon, how about you? You're the one who brought this to my attention. Do you think we'll get like almost a mirror episode, but this is from May's side?
I hope it's not an entire episode, but I do expect at least some sort of flashback, maybe half an episode in length, that is from May's perspective of it all to show what we missed. Because what we haven't really said about all of this was there was a fire, and then 10 seconds later, everyone's dead. I feel like we missed some context here, right? So it was just kind of like, something happened. Because I don't think May lighting up, what was it, a book? Did all of that? Like, there's no way. Unless if that is the most flammable, like, monument in the history of this galaxy. Possible. But I expect to see them again.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, because media comprehension is at an all-time low with a lot of people, many people have not realized that the Jedi aren't perfect. Jedi fuck up a lot. Like a lot. And even some of their ideals, some of the ways that they live by, not great. Not great, Bob. They don't really turn out all that wonderful. And so getting to see that, I mean, you know, the whole fall of Anakin thing, they didn't do great with their star pupil, but we see more of that in this episode. Not just, you know, a lot of people are going, oh, why are the Jedi bad guys? Well, they don't actually say that in the show. Again, that is just you interpreting something. We don't know all what has happened yet. This is going to be a very gray area. There's going to be two sides to this. But Jedi fuck up a lot, and we kind of get to see them as antagonistic-ish towards this group that we see coming in. And Damon, you talk about the different perspectives we see throughout the High Republic. This was a lot of fun because it wasn't just learning about a side. It was seeing firsthand the Jedi on the opposite side of the screen that we usually see them.
Yeah. I mean, this is an era of the Jedi where they're at their highest, which also means they're at their worst because the hubris is so grand at this point for them, right? So they're going to walk into a situation with their noses high and act like they own the place because that's what they were during that time, even towards the end of the High Republic, right? So seeing them from that perspective, yeah, it does add a little bit of like a cop aspect to them, a space detective aspect to them, where you're trying to, you know, protect what you're having. And then here come these guys that come in that look like they're trying to take all of that away from you, right? That's from the perspective that they're telling it from you, from the twins, from the Coven's group. You know, from their side, maybe they're just saying, because we usually see stories from their side, all we would hear is, hey, there's these little girls, they got taken in by this coven, there's witches bad, they use the Force the wrong way, we got to go save them, right? That's how it would be told from the other side. But when you see it from May's, from Osha's side, you see it from, you know, oh, they're trying to take us away from all of this.
And I think it's really interesting too, because you brought up like they're at their height of their power, and so that's why they're worse. That's how we see it in real life too. Now, obviously, in Canada and especially the United States, not all that many great political parties to choose from when you're voting. But what you see around the world is the longer, no matter how great they start out, the longer a political party is in power and there aren't other groups challenging them to be better at providing change, adapt to the times, the longer a group is in power, the more corrupt that they become over time, trying to maintain that power. And I do think we see a little bit of that with the Jedi here. And Jamie, something I found so interesting is like that one direct line from Soul: Jedi don't take children. And, you know, you can tell he believes that. I hope we don't get anything with Soul that turns out he did something absolutely terrible, because he's the most lovable Jedi we have ever seen since Kanan Jarrus. And I really hope everything is good. So you can tell he believes that. But you can see with their methods throughout this, the different power dynamics and how they're abusing that power to kind of go, Osha, everything is going to be okay. Come be a Jedi. We're better. You don't know better as a child, but come join us. Like, you can clearly see them manipulating the children.
It's funny because I think people they just lack nuance these days. The idea that the Jedi are good guys and they're only good guys. Like, first of all, what movies have you been watching for the past 45 years? Second of all, yeah, they're good guys. They are, but they don't always make the right decisions. Remember that whole war they got into that was pretty stupid. And they were just letting the same guy use them as pawns against each other. Yes, the Jedi are inherently good guys, but of course, exactly what you said, they have this power, not literally in a way that makes them, they think they're right. And that's, it's like what Spider-Man says in Civil War. He's like, you think you're right, and that makes you dangerous. And that's kind of the thing that I think people don't think about sometimes, just like you're bringing up the real world. And people see things in black and white, and that's just not how things are. They're typically, I just watched an episode of Clone Wars where I think the episode was literally called Heroes on Both Sides. And it's like, and that's kind of the reality. There's not good, evil, in every situation. And I like that they're making us question what's going on with the Jedi. I don't think the show's going to end and say, ha ha, gotcha, the Jedis have sucked all along. Jedi are the worst. We hate those guys. Ha ha. Like, no, that's not what's happening. And this is, again, it's nuance, baby. And I think that's great.
For every time somebody, you know, Yord is out here using his Jedi mind tricks on anybody just to find out whatever the hell he wants, and he's being very willy-nilly with it, kind of showing their hubris there. There are clear examples of, and like Torben being very, sorry, not Torben, Indara being very fascistic as she's going to see this group of witches to impose her will. You still see some Kalnakas and some souls who are clearly like, I don't really like how we're going about this. Let me try and be a little nicer here. Let me be the good cop. And you see the two sides of it. You see how Mace Windu, as powerful as a warrior he was, just made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision towards the end of the Clone Wars that lead to their downfall. So it's like you said, there's nuance to it. And I'm excited to find out what the hell actually happened in this fire. Because it's like you said, oh, there's a fire. 10 seconds later, all of these witches are dead on the ground with no fire wounds. Also with not looking like any lightsaber wounds either. But there are a couple really important things to take away that are kind of blink and you won't notice it things. One, Jamie, you mentioned earlier, Torben balding after all these years because of how stressed this man is. And he's got the scars over his eyes. Well, he didn't have that as a young Padawan. He gets them after the quote-unquote fire. The other one, all of these different witches are lying there dead on the ground, including the twins, the leader, Mother Anisaya. Did I get that right? Anisaya. But Mother Coral, the one who birthed them, the one who carried them, the one with the horns, not there. Not among the people on the ground perished. She was not shown in the destruction whatsoever. Damon, I'll throw it to you first. What do you think? Theorize for me. What actually went down? And do you think, where do you think Mother Coral could pop back up? Do you put any credence in the theory that she could in fact be the Sith Lord?
Do I put any credence in theory that she could be Sith Lord? I will answer that like I answer everything that has a possibility. Sure, that's possible. What do I think happened there? Man, beats me at this point because it feels like we're missing a lot of information. But from the makings of it, what I do think happened was the Jedi came in probably to just, hey, where is there, like, what's going on? Somebody took that as an aggressive type of stance and a fight broke out. Some force was used. I don't know. I do think something may have happened with, like, we did see the apprentice, how his eyes like went black at one point, right? And he almost like stopped to the will of the witches. Something may have happened there that will be brought back up again, that maybe they used him almost as like as a pawn to fight for them in like almost like a puppetry type of way. And that's how he lost his eye or whatever. That's a guess. I'm just guessing at this point because you come into like, you know, a crime situation, you see bodies everywhere, no burn wounds, no flesh wounds. You're just kind of like, well, something happened.
Jamie, I know you're not one to really theorize, but especially when you've seen another episode, but what were your biggest takeaways of like that there's more going on?
So I didn't notice that Coral wasn't there, and now I wouldn't be. I don't think she's the Sith. I would be surprised. You never know. Like Damon said, who it could be. But I do feel like if you remember, they when May was getting mad, Coral and May like went off together. Like, go take a breather. Go walk with Mother Coral. And I wouldn't be surprised if. Because I think Coral's working out of fear. She clearly hates the Jedi, and I wouldn't be surprised if she would rather see Asha dead than go with the Jedi. And maybe she's the one who told May to kill her or something like that. Because that was a little extreme. You know, I'm gonna light you on fire. So, but I interesting. I don't know. I will tell you that is not answered in episode 4. not a spoiler, so I don't know.
We didn't get any Yord Horde in episode 3, but hopefully he will be back in episode 4. And the rest of the Acolyte is going to be really exciting. I love a murder mystery style show, and I can't wait to see all the layers of this series unfold after each and every week. But it's not the only good television and movies going on right now. We got lots of great content coming, including Inside Out 2 interviews dropping this weekend. Our fellow agents Aisha Shabiz and Richard Nebbins gave some awesome interviews for Inside Out 2, so we'll be dropping those out soon. You can also find Aisha's review of the movie up on agentsfandom.com. Damon, what was cooking on the Comic Corner this week, and what's coming next week?
What's cooking on the Comic Corner this week? As we mentioned, we had a Scarlet Witch new issue. We're still going through Blood Hunt, which is Blade's little vampire event. When I mean little, I mean big, because there's 21 tie-in issues just this month alone. Does that sound like a lot? Yes, it does, because that is a lot. It's a bit excessive, Marvel, but, you know, that's just me.
When you can't put out a Blade movie, you got to put out 30 Blade comics.
So many, TJ. But we have interviews up on the channel this week on the Spotify and YouTube channel. Our most recent one with Adam Lawson from Massive, promoting his book Kids and Monsters, which is pitched as this: Stranger Things plus Pokemon. You interested? Because I am.
Two of your favorites colliding, but Comic Corner isn't the only other podcast on the Agents of Fandom podcast feed right now, because we have the House of the Dragon after show starting with Fat Thor and the Listen 3000 boys, and so that'll be coming every Monday morning after each episode of House of the Dragon. You can find the season 1 recap now on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And like Adam always says, check the website every day. We have reviews, recaps, features for The Acolyte, My Adventures with Superman, House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, The Boys, The Bear, every day coming, and so much more as well. Like I mentioned, Inside Out 2 reviews, and there's going to be lots and lots coming with Deadpool and Wolverine on the horizon. Jamie, you are busy, and I thank you for coming onto the podcast, because it's not just like you're writing. You host or co-host 2 other podcasts. And so let the people know about Phase Zero, about Love in the Time of Hydra, and anything else you got cooking.
Yes, well, again, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. Phase Zero, yeah, we know the drill. We talk about Marvel news on Wednesdays. But Love in the Time of Hydra, which is, my Agents of, for those who might not know, my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. anniversary podcast. While we wait for season 2's anniversary to kick off in September, we are going through Firefly on our Patreon, because my co-host Tony has never seen that, just like he's never seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's pretty fun to live with somebody who has not seen all the best television. So episode 2 is coming Sunday. But also exciting, if you live in Los Angeles, we have a table at Hellmouth Con on Saturday, which is a con that's basically like just dedicated to all of Whedon shows. I think it used to be called Whedon Con, and then they had to change that for obvious reasons. But because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is, it's under that umbrella, so we will be there. We made some fun friendship bracelets to give out, some T-shirts. So if you live here, come say hi.
Heck yeah, that is absolutely awesome. Definitely go check that out. And that's the reason I love in the Time of Hydra, because it's so relatable for me, where when the pandemic began and my, at the time, girlfriend, now wife, and I basically had to decide, okay, are we going to spend all of our time together or none of our time together? And we chose all of, and just binged through all of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and she hadn't seen it, and I got to rewatch it, and it was so much fun going through it. And to make things even better, if this isn't, I can't give you a better pitch than this to listen to Love in the Time of Hydra. There's one episode, 1 week, where it's me, I'm the guest. And then the next episode, I wasn't quite back to back. There's one in between. But the episode after that, it's Clark freaking Gregg, Agent Coulson himself, Director Coulson himself. So an absolutely incredible episode. Make sure you check that out. I get to mention myself in the same sentences as a guest on a podcast as Clark Gregg, so that is incredibly exciting for me. Make sure you check out all of these great podcasts. Thank you so much for tuning in today, everyone. Follow the Agents of Fandom on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. Like, subscribe, all those great things. We thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back next week for episode 4 of The Acolyte. And make sure you check out not just Comic Corner, but the House of the Dragon after show, breaking down the premiere on coming out this coming Monday as well. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. See you next week. Peace.